Cool. I mean, I suppose it's the same basic premise, isn't it? You know, keeping yourself thoroughly organized on the spot.
Yeah.
That for that little bit of time that you invest at the beginning, you know, while it might seem to some people like, well, what are these people doing?
Yeah.
But you're actually saving yourself so much time down the track.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And you know, like I said to you, and I'll keep referring back to the whole restaurant thing. I mean, like I say, I've done restaurants for 22 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't treat this place anything other than working in a large restaurant, you know, and whether you're, you know, it's my best bit of advice, whether you're ever working a section or looking after the whole kitchen or looking after multi-venues, if you just break it down into the basic nitty-gritty of what you did on that section, but obviously you have to expand it on a larger scale, it's no different.
Yeah.
Absolutely no different whatsoever.
I think, you know, a lot of what you see sometimes, you know, when you see people, you know, restaurants, for example, when you see people struggle on a station, they may have that kind of, they may be able to flick a pan, but they don't know how to get themselves organized in the beginning. You know, everyone says mise en place, right?
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
You're definitely
you know,
right.
So what you learn in your first 3, 4, 5 years of cooking is what will set you up for the rest of your time in your career.
Absolutely.
You know, and once you've got that knowledge and that confidence, you know, obviously having the knowledge, you get your confidence. Then you're picking up your skill level as you're going along. It's essential. It's essential. You know, and that's what your confidence, your knowledge is what you put onto all your staff. You know?
That you project it onto them.
Yeah,
for
absolutely,
sure.
absolutely.
Now, just a little bit with, you know, with all these guys coming in.
Yeah.
Obviously, one thing that seems like it would be a screaming issue to me would be like training or training costs.
Yeah.
Any kind of strategies on that, or?
We obviously look. We're working in one of the most high-profile buildings in the world. You know, we have a system for everything. You know, we have, as soon as we employ somebody, they get an induction. Obviously, they have to be through that induction. They have to get security clearance. No one gets in and out of this building without passes, as you guys have seen this morning. Yeah. You know, but then with the guys that are working on a more regular basis, they have to have fire and safety inductions. So we have all online systems. You know, obviously technology is building. You know, everything they have to follow this system. You know what I mean? Before they're allowed on site to work in the building.
Cool. Let's see. Now, what about? Do you ever have any consistency issues? You know, with all the different people that you have coming through, I guess it would be less of an issue in terms of, you know, you've got your sous chefs monitoring the quality of things coming out, but do you ever find that you get fluctuations based on?
Look, yeah, I mean, you know, for anyone to turn around in any part of this industry and say they don't have consistency problems, they'll be lying. Yeah. You know, we're dealing with humans. The only way you'll get consistency is if it's computer generated, and it ain't going to happen. You know what I mean? So, what we try and do, and you know what we've done over the last, and what we do with all the businesses is it's systems. We have systems. So before we put onto the lights of any staff member, I'd never walk up to any staff member and say make that. You can't do that. You know, you need to show them. You need a recipe. You need pictures, right? So whatever we put on the menu, it's been trialed, tested several times. It's gone through a board of people that's tasted and tested. Everyone's happy with it. And then, basically what we do is then we put back into the staff. So initially we'll be putting into the sous chefs, the senior chef de parties, and making sure that they all have an understanding. They're all familiar with the recipes. They understand the basic, theory behind the recipes. They understand the techniques behind the recipes. So then what it does is it builds that whole tribe thing, you know what I mean? That they will then put onto their juniors and their juniors, you know what I mean? So it's basically the more information you can give your staff, the better. And it comes back to that knowledge is power. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And also, I suppose you got to know your staff as well, don't you? Know who's capable of what.
Absolutely. Yeah, you wouldn't. I wouldn't never expect, a young junior to start making sauces. You just wouldn't go there. Because you'd just cause more problems than there were.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It's a recipe for disaster. That's right.
What about? We'll just talk about labor again for a second. So obviously in the summer, you guys are flat out, like you're saying, you have 125 people over this short period. What do you do in the softer times of the year that allows you to, still access staff when you need them in the busy times? You know what I mean? Like, what do you do when it's not so busy?
Well, look, anyone to turn around and say they're not busy in the hospitality industry, even when they're quiet, again, is lying, because there's so much to do. There's infrastructure, there's new infrastructure, there's new systems that you might have, stuff. Nothing's ever perfect, and you do your best to try and make, it run as streamlined as possible. But there's always stuff that you can do to modify to make it run that little bit smoother. So, we do research, we do, menu development, we do. We keep busy. We get the girls going on the phone and trying to drum up more business. We've been very lucky, the fact that this is the Sydney Opera House, that there's not really that much of a downtime. And obviously my association, with the other parts of the business, and with that, being able to having that association with other parts of the business, that enables us to draw on staff when necessary. You know what I mean?
So like Aria or Opera Bar. And
yes,
things like
absolutely.
That.
And on the flip side is offload staff. So like I say, I've been very lucky this year. I haven't had to let any staff go. I've managed to keep a team of 8 full timers.
That's terrific.
And then, obviously through the network of the businesses as well, it allows us to, when we do get the big and the larger functions, to draw on them businesses to, so we can make our things work.
That's great. So that's a real feather in your cap if you think about it, having those kind of resources behind you.
And look, and if I have to be honest, there's people like yourself, and other colleges that we have relationships with as well, that, they're constantly trying to, and keeping you in the loop with the great staff that, are out there, that sort of, that's another sort of loophole as well, that, if I do need people, I've always got people I can call on,
Well, and people love working for you too, Sandall.
Not all of them.
All right, now let's see. What are the other things? Not too much left. You talked a little bit about security and stuff. What about? Do you guys ever think? Do you take many sustainability issues on board? Like in terms of using, free range stuff or, farmed products or things like that. Like not like obviously farmed produce, but I mean like farmed fish and things like that. Or
look, quality of produce is something that's very close to my heart. It's not, I'm not for trying to cut corners or, or anything like that. And I think anybody that's ever worked for me has a total understanding of what I'm all about. I think as far as sustainability, I think, any shift, look, I don't run down that whole avenue of, it has to be organic, it has to be all farm fish, and it has to be all free range, you know what I mean? If I have to be brutally honest, and I know it might turn a lot of people's noses up, I think there is some great organic produce out there, but do I think it's the best? No, I don't. I personally think it's an angle just to up the price and,
it's a sales pitch, isn't it?
I think it's a sales pitch. I think they need to redirect it. But the flip side to that, there is some great produce out there. I just think it's been overworked a little bit somehow.
It seems like it became a marketing angle before it became like a movement.
Yes.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I understand all the directives towards green, making things greener, but I think it needs to be done in the right fashion. I'm sure it has been.
As far as farm fish go, look, I mean, I use it. I think it's a great product. I think everyone should be using it. Is it something that we need to purely direct at? No, I don't. You know what I mean? But I think, for the sake of the ocean, you only have to look at the Mediterranean and see the damage that's been caused over there. It's phenomenal what they've
practically
done.
Fished out.
Nothing there. It's virtually gone.
What about? Do you ever get any clients that express these kind of concerns? Like, well, we only want organic produce, or we only want. Do you ever get any of that?
Yeah, we do get that. And I'm more than happy to accommodate. Look, I mean, this is what we do. We have a base menu here, Jack. Right? Is that menu ever the same? No, it isn't. I think I've been around the world twice with cooking all the different cuisines, which look, I like it. I find it, I put my little spin on it. You know what I mean? Yes, they do ask for the whole organic. Obviously, allergies and different dietary requirements. When you're doing functions, I've never seen anything like it. Everyone seems to have allergy these days. You know what I mean? It's phenomenal. But you build it round and you give the client what they want, because essentially that's what they're paying the bills. Yeah,
that's true. And I just got one more question for you, and it's sort of a broad one. do you see as the future of our business? You know, like what kind of trends do you see coming up on the horizon, or you know, what either technology or methods, or you see anything that you see trending in the future?
Yeah, look, you know, food's like fashion, man. You know what I mean? It has this, you know, it just comes back. You know what I mean? And I can remember when I first got out to Australia, the whole Thai and the Asian fusion, man, it was just boom, bang. You know what I mean? And you know, look, I come from, you know, classically French trained, and you know, I honestly believe, and I've seen it happen a couple of times since I've been in Australia already, it will come back to basics. You know, so you know, as far as getting that basic, you know, European French training indentured into staff, I think it is probably the most important thing that anybody could do.
You can go on to molecular from there.
Absolutely.
You can go on to slow food from
well,
there.
you look at all the molecular and the way that, you know, all the slow food movement and all that, it's all basic French techniques and European cooking, but they're just modified. You know, like, you know, Heston, he does all his foams and all that sort of stuff, but that is just a modern interpretation of classical French cooking. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's still doing, you know, a beautiful sauce. Look, he's probably not thickening it like, you know, how they used to. You know what I mean? He's using modern techniques to do it, but he's using his classically, you know, trained knowledge to get to where he wants to be now. So, look, as far as trends coming out, I think back to basics.